This didn't start with paperwork. It didn't start with a courtroom. It started with 50 Cent doing what 50 Cent does best, smiling while lighting a match and tossing it straight into the middle of hip-hop royalty. Because when he pushed Jay-Z back into the spotlight over an alleged $8 million controversy and disturbing claims circulating online, the internet didn't just listen. It froze. This wasn't a casual jab. This felt calculated, strategic. The kind of move where everyone suddenly reopens old tabs they swore they closed years ago. Clips resurfaced. Headlines got reread. And fans started asking uncomfortable questions that nobody wanted trending again. What made this explode wasn't confirmation. It was implication. The timing, the tone. The way 50 didn't yell, didn't rant, just pointed. And let the internet sprint the rest of the way. This wasn't messy. This was surgical chaos. Social media went into overdrive. Memes dropped. Think pieces followed. And suddenly Jay-Z, the untouchable, the billionaire blueprint, was back in the center of a conversation he's spent years staying above. This made industry beef look like playground drama. The Kardashians couldn't manufacture this level of tension if they tried. This didn't feel like a random jab thrown into the internet for laughs. It felt deliberate, like someone tapping the glass of a display case everyone was told not to touch. When 50 Cent pushed Jay-Z back into the spotlight over an alleged $8 million controversy and a set of disturbing claims already floating around online, it didn't come with a megaphone. It came with timing. And timing is the most dangerous weapon in celebrity culture because 50 Cent doesn't scream accusations. He doesn't need to. He points, smirks, and lets implication do the work while the internet runs full speed toward conclusions. A repost here, a caption there, a reminder that certain conversations never actually disappear, they just sit quietly until someone decides to wake them up. This wasn't chaos. This was controlled ignition. Jay-Z is not built for this kind of moment. His entire brand is elevation, distance, and untouchability. Billionaire status, cultural architect, legacy protected by layers of success and silence. He doesn't chase rumors. He doesn't respond to noise. And that strategy works beautifully. Until someone forces the noise upward instead of sideways. That's what made this hit different. The alleged $8 million situation instantly became the centerpiece of the conversation. Not because it was new information, but because numbers make speculation feel concrete. A dollar amount gives gossip a spine. Suddenly, people weren't just debating rumors, they were debating transactions, decisions, power, and accountability. Once money enters the chat, curiosity stops being casual and starts being aggressive. What unsettled people even more was how the claims were referenced. Not laid out, not detailed, just enough to gesture toward older online discussions and uncomfortable industry whispers that many believed had been buried under time, influence, and wealth. The phrasing mattered. People keep bringing this up. Funny how this never goes away. Interesting who gets protected. Those aren't accusations. They're invitations. And the internet accepted immediately. Timelines flipped from jokes to investigative energy in minutes. Old interviews resurfaced. Lyrics were replayed like hidden confessions. Fans pulled screenshots from years ago and stitched timelines that may or may not belong together. But certainty didn't matter. Momentum did. Context collapsed under speculation. And nobody slowed down to verify because verification doesn't trend like suspicion does. Some viewers laughed it off, saying this was just 50 Cent being 50 Cent. Long-standing rivalry. Classic trolling. Entertainment disguised as commentary. They argued this was hip-hop theater, not substance. Another episode in a feud that survived decades by reinventing itself for new platforms. Others weren't convinced. They pointed out that 50 rarely chooses moments randomly. He waits, he watches. He moves when narratives feel vulnerable. He doesn't swing at people who are already trending downward. He pokes figures who believe they're immune. And that's why this felt calculated rather than messy. Jay-Z's silence didn't help calm the situation. Silence can look powerful when the noise is small. But when speculation grows loud enough, silence starts to feel like strategy instead of confidence. People began interpreting absence as intention. Not because that's fair, but because that's how internet psychology works. And then came the disturbing claims being referenced alongside the financial controversy. Again, nothing stated as fact. Nothing spelled out. Just enough allusion to trigger memories of older rumors that never fully disappeared, only quieted down when attention shifted elsewhere. The internet has a long memory, and when those memories get nudged back into relevance, people don't ask whether they're true first. They ask why they were quiet. That's when discomfort set in. This wasn't about proving anything. It was about destabilizing an image. About reminding audiences that no amount of money completely erases past questions, especially when those questions involve power, access, and who gets shielded from scrutiny. Jay-Z wasn't being accused outright. He was being re-examined, and re-examination hits harder than accusation. Defenders rushed in quickly. They called the moment irresponsible, reckless, and dangerous. They argued that implication without evidence is how reputations get damaged unfairly. They said repeating unproven claims, even vaguely, is still harmful. They reminded everyone that influence doesn't equal guilt. But opposition didn't slow. Others countered that conversations don't resurface this often for no reason. They said history shows that powerful figures stay protected until narratives shift. They argued that silence from institutions doesn't equal innocence. It equals control. And once that argument appears, the conversation stops being about one person and starts being about systems. Reaction channels jumped in instantly. Some cautious, stacking disclaimers like bricks. Others reckless, leaning fully into shock value because fear sells faster than nuance. Every reaction fed the algorithm. Every algorithm push fed the controversy. Memes followed because humor always shows up when tension gets too uncomfortable to sit with directly. Jokes about billionaires being allergic to accountability circulated. Comparisons to past industry reckonings popped up. Sarcastic captions asking why certain names only trend when certain people poke them. Even unrelated celebrities caught stray speculation simply because proximity now felt suspicious. The Kardashians, once again, became the measuring stick for chaos, catching random comparisons because every scandal somehow gets weighed against their mess. And somehow, even this made their chaos look curated. What truly amplified the moment was the lack of resolution. No denial, no clarification, no attempt to shut the narrative down. Just noise filling the vacuum. And in the internet era, noise becomes reality faster than truth ever could. The conversation widened quickly. This stopped being about one alleged deal or one set of claims. It became about power dynamics, about how wealth reshapes accountability, about which stories get buried and which get recycled, about how long silence can protect someone before it becomes suspicious instead. The single quotes S legacy didn't crumble in this moment, but it shifted. And shifts matter. People weren't canceling him. They were watching him differently, listening differently, interpreting old moments with new suspicion. That subtle change is often more damaging than outright backlash. This wasn't a scandal with receipts yet. It was a reminder. A reopening of tabs people thought were permanently closed. And once those tabs reopen, they don't shut quietly. Once the spotlight snapped back into place, the internet did what it always does when mystery meets money and power. It stopped asking polite questions and started treating speculation like a sport. Timelines filled up with side-by-side clips, captions heavy with implication, and creators confidently connecting dots that may or may not belong on the same page. The original nudge from 50 Cent was no longer the headline. The reaction to it became the story. Twitter turned into a courtroom without a judge. Instagram became a museum of screenshots. TikTok acted like it had discovered a lost season of a scandal documentary. People slowed footage down, analyzed tone, and reinterpreted pauses like they were decoding secret messages. The alleged $8 million figure kept popping up because numbers feel official, even when the context around them isn't. A dollar amount has a way of anchoring imagination. Giving rumors a weight they don't always deserve but almost always receive. Memes arrived right on schedule. Because humor is how the internet processes discomfort. Jokes about billionaires suddenly remembering humility. Sarcastic posts about how silence is the most expensive PR strategy money can buy. Clips comparing this moment to past industry reckonings, edited with dramatic music and just enough irony to feel bold without committing to facts. It wasn't comedy for laughs. It was comedy for release. Reaction channels piled in next, each one louder than the last. Some wrapped themselves in disclaimers, repeating allegedly like a safety charm while still leaning hard into suspense. Others abandoned caution entirely, treating the conversation like an open mic night for speculation. Neutrality vanished quickly because neutrality doesn't trend. Outrage, curiosity, and suspicion to dot what really escalated things was how familiar this felt. Viewers started saying this wasn't new energy, just recycled tension finding a new trigger. Old interviews were rewatched with suspicious eyes. Lyrics that once sounded metaphorical were suddenly framed as confessional. Past business moves were dragged into the conversation like missing puzzle pieces, whether they fit or not. Context became optional. Momentum became everything. The single quotes S continued silence became a character of its own. Some read it as confidence, the calm of someone above the noise. Others saw it as calculated distance, a refusal to dignify internet chaos with a response. But the longer the silence stretched, the more interpretations multiplied. Silence stopped being neutral and started being narratable. That's the danger zone, because once the internet starts narrating for you, it doesn't choose flattering angles. The disturbing claims being referenced alongside the financial controversy, even without detail, kept the temperature high. People argued over whether vague allusions are worse than direct accusations. Some said implication is a coward's weapon, powerful enough to damage without the accountability of specifics. Others argued that implication exists because direct statements are often impossible in systems built to protect power. Both arguments gained traction, and neither side slowed the spread. Public figures tiptoed around the topic. A few posted cryptic captions about truth, timing, and the industry not being ready, carefully vague enough to avoid commitment but sharp enough to keep engagement buzzing. Those posts didn't clarify anything, but they didn't need to. They fed the idea that something bigger was brewing beneath the surface. Then came the retroactive suspicion. People began questioning relationships that had nothing to do with the original claims. Who stood next to who in old photos? Who stopped collaborating and when? Who went quiet around certain periods? The internet treated distance like evidence and proximity like guilt, flattening complexity into digestible narratives. This is how speculation turns radioactive. And still, no confirmation arrived. That absence didn't cool the story. It intensified it. Because when nothing is confirmed, everything feels possible. The internet thrives in uncertainty. It fills gaps aggressively because gaps are uncomfortable and answers are slow. 50 Cent, notably, didn't escalate the way people expected. No follow-up rant. No detailed explanation. He let the moment breathe. That restraint read as confidence to some and manipulation to others. Either way, it worked. The less he said, the more people talked. The conversation widened again, this time into broader themes. About how power shields reputations. About how wealth buys time, not silence. About how certain figures are scrutinized endlessly while others float above the fray. This stopped being a single controversy and turned into a referendum on celebrity accountability. And that's when fatigue started creeping in, not boredom. Fatigue. People began admitting they felt uneasy. Not entertained, not amused, but unsettled. The jokes still landed, but they landed heavier. The memes still spread, but they carried an edge. Viewers weren't asking, "What's next?" as much as they were asking, "Where does this go?" Because public speculation doesn't end cleanly. It either burns out or hardens into belief. And belief is sticky. Jay-Z's legacy didn't collapse in this phase, but it shifted further. the untouchable or adult just enough for scrutiny to slip through. Fans who once brushed off rumors now said, "I'm not saying it's true, but..." And that sentence alone is enough to change perception. You don't need conviction to alter a narrative. You need doubt. The alleged $8 million controversy became shorthand, a symbol more than a story. It represented questions about deals, transparency, and who answers to whom. Whether those questions were fair or not almost didn't matter anymore. They were being asked loudly, repeatedly, and in public. Industry insiders moved cautiously. Not publicly, but visibly. Fewer comments, less engagement, carefully worded posts. Silence spread outward like a ripple because proximity to controversy is risk, and risk is bad for business. The internet noticed that too, treating every quiet move as confirmation of tension. By now, the original spark had turned into a sustained burn. The conversation wasn't peaking. It was settling into something more durable. Not a viral spike, but a lingering cloud that follows names around until something else replaces it. And that's when the tone changed again. This stopped feeling like entertainment and started feeling like a test. A test of how much influence can absorb. A test of how long silence can hold. A test of whether implication alone can reshape public memory. The internet didn't need answers to stay engaged. It needed anticipation, and anticipation was everywhere. Because when stories reach this phase, they don't resolve. They wait, they attach themselves to future moments, future interviews, future headlines. Every new appearance becomes an opportunity for the conversation to resurface. By the time the noise softened from a roar into a constant hum, the damage had already settled into places the camera can't capture. Not the kind of damage that comes with court dates or press conferences, but the kind that quietly rewires how people are seen. Because in the internet era, you don't need proof to shift perception. You need repetition. And this story had been repeated enough times to harden into a lens. Jay-Z still didn't respond, and that silence became the loudest sound in the room. For some, it read like confidence, the posture of someone too elevated to address online chaos. For others, it felt calculated, like waiting out a storm instead of confronting it. Neither interpretation could be confirmed, but both lived comfortably in the same space. And that ambiguity is exactly where narratives grow teeth. The billionaire blueprint suddenly felt reachable, not dismantled, not destroyed, just closer to scrutiny than it had been in years. Fans weren't canceling him. They weren't marching. They were rewatching, re-listening, reinterpreting, and that subtle shift is often more powerful than outrage. Outrage burns hot and fast. Reconsideration lingers. The alleged $8 million controversy stopped being a detail and became a symbol, a shorthand for larger questions about business, influence, and who answers when power is involved. Whether the number itself was accurate mattered less than what it represented. Money, secrecy, leverage. The idea that certain conversations only surface when someone with enough reach decides to poke them awake. And once that idea settles in, it doesn't leave quietly. 50 Cent's role in all of this became clearer with time. He didn't need to escalate. He didn't need to clarify. He'd already done what he set out to do: redirect attention. People debated whether that was irresponsible or strategic, whether he was exposing something or simply exploiting curiosity. But even critics admitted one thing: it worked. The conversation didn't fade when he stopped posting. It sustained itself. That's when you know a moment has crossed from trolling into impact. When the originator steps back and the narrative keeps moving on its own, carried by speculation and shared suspicion. Industry relationships started feeling the weight next. Not publicly, not dramatically, but subtly. Fewer interactions, less visible alignment, quiet distance. In celebrity ecosystems, proximity is currency, and controversy devalues it instantly. The internet noticed every unfollow, every absence, every carefully neutral post. Silence became suspicious. Neutrality became interpreted. Everyone's behavior was now part of the story, whether they wanted it to be or not. The disturbing claims that had been referenced earlier, still undefined and unconfirmed, continued to hover like a shadow. They weren't repeated loudly anymore. They didn't need to be. Their power came from implication, not detail. People debated whether bringing them up without specifics was more dangerous than stating them outright. Some argued implication poisons without accountability. Others argued implication exists because direct accusations are often impossible in systems built to protect. Power.no one won that argument, but the argument itself kept the story alive. What shifted most noticeably was the tone of engagement. Early reactions were loud, excited, almost gleeful in their speculation. Now the mood felt heavier, more cautious, less playful. Viewers started saying they felt uneasy rather than entertained. The memes still circulated, but the laughter carried an edge. It's one thing to joke about celebrity beef. It's another to sit with questions about power and protection. This is the phase where scandals stop feeling fun. The single quotes S legacy wasn't rewritten here, but it was reframed. Not as guilty, not as exposed, but as open to examination in a way it hadn't been for a long time. That reframing matters because legacy is built on narrative control. And narrative control weakens when too many people start asking the same questions. Even if those questions don't have answers yet, fans who once dismissed any criticism now found themselves saying, "I'm not saying it's true, but..." And that phrase is a turning point. It signals doubt. And doubt doesn't need confirmation to do damage. It just needs space. The industry itself felt implicated, whether fairly or not. Conversations widened beyond individuals and landed on systems. Who gets shielded? Who gets scrutinized? Why some stories get buried while others explode? Why silence works until it doesn't? This stopped being about to men and turned into a commentary on how celebrity power actually functions behind the scenes, and that's when people realized something uncomfortable, nothing about this was going to resolve cleanly. There wouldn't be a neat ending. No statement tying everything together. No statement tying everything together. No dramatic reveal that confirmed or denied everything at once. Just a lingering question mark hanging over future appearances, future interviews, future headlines. Every time Jay-Z's name trends now, this conversation sits in the background, ready to resurface. That's the real consequence, not cancellation, not collapse, but context. Every public move now carries extra weight. Every silence gets interpreted. Every unrelated headline risks being folded into a narrative that didn't exist this loudly before. That's how reputations shift in the modern era. Not with explosions, but with accumulation. 50 Cent moved on publicly, as he always does. New jokes, new posts, new chaos elsewhere. But the imprint remained, because once you remind the internet where to look, you don't have to keep pointing. It remembers. The story didn't end. It dispersed. It settled into comment sections, into reaction videos saved for later, into group chats that reopen whenever a new clip drops. It became part of the background noise of celebrity discourse, always there, waiting for the next trigger. And that's the part people underestimate. You don't need to prove anything to change the temperature. You just need to introduce enough doubt that certainty feels irresponsible. The internet thrives in that gray space because gray invites participation. Everyone gets to fill in their own version. This wasn't a reckoning yet. It was a recalibration, a reminder that no amount of success permanently outruns scrutiny. That silence can protect until it provokes. That implication, when timed correctly, can be more disruptive than accusation. And that once a spotlight is redirected upward, it doesn't always move back where it came from. The conversation may cool. The headlines may shift. Something louder will eventually take its place. But this moment doesn't disappear. It waits. And the next time a similar question surfaces, the internet won't treat it as new. It'll treat it as confirmation that something unresolved is still hanging in the air. And just like that, one repost turned into a full-scale spotlight shift. No courtrooms, no confirmations, Just timing, implication, and the internet doing what it does best, turning questions into pressure. If you're still watching right now, congratulations! You didn't just witness drama, you watched how power gets tested without a single receipt being dropped. Now let's talk. Do you think 50 Cent is exposing cracks that were already there? Or is this just elite-level trolling designed to stir chaos and collect engagement? Is Jay-Z's silence confidence? Or strategy? Drop your honest take in the comments. Not the safe one, the real one. Because the comment section is where the real investigation happens. If this video made you pause, rewind, or say hold up even once, smash that like button like it owes you money. Hit it the same way the internet hits speculation, fast, hard, and without hesitation. And if you're not subscribed yet, fix that immediately. Stories like this don't come with press releases, and we break them down every time the spotlight moves where it's not supposed to. Turn on notifications too, because controversies don't schedule themselves. One post, one caption, one perfectly timed nudge. That's all it takes for a whole new conversation to erupt. And you already know we're here when it does. Legacy doesn't disappear overnight. It gets questioned, reframed, rewatched, and once the process starts, it doesn't stop just because the headlines move on. So stay locked in, stay skeptical, and stay ahead of the narrative. Because over here, we don't chase rumors, we map how the spotlight really moves. This is Fame Blueprint, where power, perception, and controversy collide.